Friday for
Happy
us.
Friday for everyone. We went on a little jog this morning.
We did.
It was empty, so we enjoyed that.
I didn't used to like jogging, but
until what?
I've gotten,
I got you into it.
It's almost this primal thing that I've come to appreciate about us being humans, and we were, hunter-gatherers at one point, and to track down our food. So a jog, not like a heavy run, not super long distance, but a jog for me feels like I'm getting back in touch with my sort of primal roots.
Yeah.
So I like that.
And for me, it's like practical. Like I used to run a lot. I used to run like miles and miles a day. And then I just stopped because it started hurting my joints. And I was just, thinking, well, we actually need to be able to run. Like I've had to run to the bus many times or catch a subway.
Yes.
So I'm like, remember running in the airport with our baggage?
Totally. Yeah.
So I was just like, you know what? Let's just try to incorporate that in our training.
Yeah, just a minimum amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi, Vern. Hi. Good
Hello,
morning.
Vern.
Good morning.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. So what's our topic?
That's my question for you. What is our topic?
Today our topic is about finding meaning, discovering meaning in our life, in our daily routines, finding our purpose, because that's a really important topic that we want to discuss.
I think the lesson you released earlier this week was one of my favorites.
Really?
Yeah, just because I feel like we actually wrote that one a while ago.
Yeah.
Back
in like February.
Back in February.
Yeah.
You can tell it still has the lapel as opposed to the boom mic.
And my hair is short.
Hair is shorter. But it got pushed back. And I think when we released it, it came out at a very good time because, I think a lot of us right now are trying to find a new purpose.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't have jobs at the moment, looking at the economic data. And those of us even who do, the job is very different than what it used to be, right? And so not only that, but at the same time, there's also so much changing in the world that what was important to us isn't as important as other things now, right? Our priorities are starting to shift.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
so
true. With all these things sort of turning upside down and spinning around, the idea of purpose and the idea of meaning, right? Finding meaning in our lives. Certainly for me, I can speak for myself, it's changed. And so I think, this is a good context to talk about this.
Definitely.
I don't know, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I definitely feel like when there's a lot of like moving parts and a lot going on, it's easy to kind of fall into someone else's purpose or
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Get sort of scooped up into like what their meaning is in life and the world, whatever. But I think moments like these really force us to search inwards, and it might be because of a layoff or a lateral career move or just like a burnout. For a number of reasons, we might have to reevaluate what meaning looks like to us. And I think it's a big one, too, in terms of priorities shifting. With people not really being able to go out as much as they were used to.
Right.
Having a huge social network in real life might be something that has been put on the back burner.
Totally.
Right? And then it's like, how do you fill that void? Because then there's that emptiness that comes with stopping something that you normally were doing. Or maybe you had this great routine of going to the gym, right? And your purpose, you felt like you created meaning by really getting
in that groove,
maybe really toned from weights or whatever. But then, you couldn't do that. And so how do you reevaluate what that purpose looks like?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love when you said your purpose was defined by someone else, right?
Yeah.
I think that's so true. And it's very easy for that to be the case.
Yeah.
And it can happen to anyone because it's easier.
Yeah. And it could be friends, it could be family, it could be society, like all the influences that you feel around you. It might not be explicitly like, this is your purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Right. My point is that it's easy to get pulled into that because it's easier for someone else to help define it for you. Yeah. And it's also interesting, even people who, I was on the phone with some of my business school friends, and a lot of them have jobs that I think people would say, oh, they've got it made and
Like
so
they've
forth.
made it,
Right.
you know?
But a lot of them express a lot of, I'm using a lot, but they express this discontent. This, their perspective was, yeah, it's okay, right? It's okay. It's not great. And, that frankly right now, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay is better than terrible.
Right.
But I think, we can take it a step further. Like, I don't think we have to settle for okay, even in situations where, things aren't as ideal as they could be.
Yeah.
I think we don't have to settle for okay, right? I think we can do better than okay. And I think a lot of it has to do with your mental mindset, right?
Yeah.
Reframing your situation. And instead of your purpose being defined by someone else, instead of them deciding what's meaningful, you take the reins proactively, take control of what's important and meaningful to you in your life.
Right. And sometimes, there is an event that forces us to do that. Again, like a layoff or something, or career switch, or I don't know, just something that you did not have direct control over. Pandemic. But other times it's like we have to search for that ourselves and seek that out ourselves. If we're feeling this like emptiness, it's like just a very like slow kind of like empty feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we find purpose?
Well, yeah,
What's a good way of finding purpose?
I think the idea of purpose and meaning are very intertwined.
Very intertwined.
Right. And in the video, I think you did a really good job of talking about how purpose can be found even in the nooks and crannies of your existing life. It doesn't require a radical shift.
No, not at all. Like you have your mundane, let's say it's a mundane like daily routine. Find some, levity in that. Find some something of interest in that. Or if it's at a job that maybe you're not 100% crazy about, try to find something in that you can create meaning from by, forging these good like business relationships, or doing one thing really, really well. So you're known as the Excel expert or the email person, or you know what I mean? So finding ways of creating purpose within that sort of those parameters.
Within the cards that you've been handed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing we can all do. Obviously, it's important for you to continue to try and expand what's available to you in your sort of spectrum of opportunities and so forth. But a very critical component to contentment, I'm trying not to use the word happiness because I feel like so overused, but contentment, a sense of fulfillment.
Fulfillment, I like that. Yeah,
is being appreciative.
Of what you have.
Of what you have currently,
and making the best of what you have.
Yeah.
Not trying to. It's not like the grass is greener mentality. Like, oh, that looks like a great job. I think I'd be good at that. Why don't I just quit my job and do that instead? That's not really what we're advocating. It's more of finding purpose and meaning in whatever it is in the cards that you've been dealt and making the most of that.
Yes.
Right?
So appreciating what you have.
Yeah.
Right, is something that I think people don't necessarily do instinctually, right? We're sort of geared to always be looking toward, we're comparing, and comparing not just to other people, but to what once was. Right. So if you just lost your job, you're comparing to your current situation to what once was when you had a job. If all your investments tanked because the stock market went down, that's a comparison, right, between when the market was up and the market was down, right? These comparisons, particularly when it's a transition toward less of something, can be a source of great discontent.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, oh, I don't have as much as I had, instead you're sort of reframing and saying, but I still have a lot, right? If you can watch this video, that means you have internet. It means you have a computer or a smartphone. It means you have
the time to be able to.
It means you have the time.
Take out, 30 minutes from your day. Gratitude is the best attitude.
I like that.
I just came up with it.
Right, I love that.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about, right? I think one way to find purpose and meaning is to really focus on the present and look around and say, what around me can I be grateful for?
Yeah.
You know, what makes me so lucky that I can watch a live stream, right? Or the video playback. Like, how do I have access to all this stuff? You might have worked for it, it might have been handed to you. Either way, you should be appreciative of what you have. And I think by doing that, that alone can change your mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance.
Yeah, that's right. Because we talk about that dichotomy, the abundance mindset and the scarcity mindset. And this is definitely a moment where you want to sort of leverage the abundance mindset and that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Like, there's enough to go around for everyone. Just kind of put it out there in the universe. Do what you can. Be proactive, right? So let's say, I want to get back to that idea of maybe not loving your job. So let's say, you know, you've now assumed the role of the Excel person, and you are now the designated Excel expert because you're good at it, and you're also, you know, other people in your environment, your work environment, have deemed you successful at it and are now looking to you for their help with Excel, let's just say, right? That's just that's just one example. Maybe I thought of you in that example. So now let's say, okay, so you're pleased with that, and you're happy that your job pays your bills and you have food on your table and all of that amazing stuff that comes with having a job. But maybe there's still that sense of like a little bit of like emptiness. And the feeling of that is like, you're let's say you're content, you're happy, you know, you're somewhat fulfilled, but there's still that like feeling of like missing out on something. And I'm not talking about FOMO of, you know, your friends all hanging out without you. It's more of like this, there's more to it. There's more.
Right.
Like, I've definitely felt that before. I think you have too.
Absolutely.
So in that scenario, right, you still keep your job, you're still like the Excel person at your office, but then maybe on the side, right, on weekends or in the morning when you wake up before you go to work, or in the evenings, like when you're winding down. I'm just talking about a traditional like 9 to 5, but you do you in terms of the hours. Maybe you allocate some of that time to figuring out, well, how can you fill that void? And so let's say you're a hyper creative person. Maybe you decide on a whim, you know, I'm just going to start doing some watercoloring.
Yeah.
Right? Explore those inklings and the curiosities you might have for
in the in-betweens.
Yeah. Like, I was so impressed. This is years ago. Greg he'd have his 9 to 5 at a tech company, and his job had nothing to do with like coding or anything like that. It was more like business development and things. So he took it upon himself because he had that curiosity of learning how to code. So he taught himself how to code from scratch. He did these, you know, courses online. And he would wake up early in the morning and get his like 3 hours of work in.
I'd be up at 5 a.m. and I'd work from 5 to 8 and then go to work.
3 hours of work in, 3 hours of work in the evening. I was doing a master's program at the time anyway, so I was, you know, not home until late. So he made use of that downtime to do something, right?
And boy, was that powerful for me.
And then he built our website, you know?
Well, that's later. I mean, that's spot on, right?
Yeah.
I didn't feel that sense of purpose in my job at the time, but I also.
But you were still very happy there.
I liked the job.
Yeah.
I really liked my boss, and I was proud of what we were accomplishing there.
Right.
It just didn't give me that sense of fulfillment, and so I didn't want to leave the job. I knew I was important for the company, and I didn't want to leave
and when you're
the
adding
founder
value,
and
when you're adding value,
right.
that's also like
that's
a sense
good.
of accomplishment.
But it wasn't giving me that sense of purpose, that sense of meaning, and so that's why I decided, you know, when I wasn't at the job, I would take advantage of that time to start to develop that sense of meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, I was fortunate enough to have the time to work on something like coding. You know, other people, if they have kids and they don't have time to do as much on the side project, well, your kids are a great source of purpose.
Excellent.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can really invest in your children and
spending
talk
time
about,
with them.
Yeah, those dividends really pay a lot
course.
throughout your life and their lives. And So there's so many different ways that you can, if your job isn't doing it for you, that's fine. There's so many other ways that you can develop meaning in your everyday life.
Yeah.
And that's also really important. You know, we're talking about the everyday stuff, right?
The routine.
The routine stuff. It's one thing to go out and do community service, you know, once a month or one specific discrete time, and that feels good in the moment, but that sort of wears off. I think what's much more important is to build something into your daily routine, and it can still be community service.
Yeah, you can do it like every
giving
week.
back.
That's a huge
is powerful,
like,
and actually I want to talk about it in a minute. But the point is, whatever it is that you're looking to develop a sense of purpose from, make sure that it's part of your daily routine, right? Because it's the stuff that happens every day that makes up our lives. The individual one-off experiences are great.
But it's not going to produce
But it's not going to produce that sustained lift.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, in terms of caring, and we were talking about developing a sense of meaning, right? Caring is one of, I think, the best ways
caring for
other people.
Other people, yeah.
Right? Or it can be
pets,
for something.
Or pets.
Pets.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right, but caring for some living being can really go a very long way toward developing that sense of meaning.
Yeah.
Because when you know that someone else relies on you, not necessarily depends, but relies on you, when you know that they look forward to your presence
with you.
and your interactions, right? That alone can generate a huge sense of purpose and meaning. And so by embracing that, and if you don't have someone that you feel that close to, go out and establish a relationship like that. It can be with an existing friend, right?
Or
someone
a sibling,
who you support, or a sibling,
a cousin,
a parent, right? A relative.
Yeah.
Or you can do it within the community, right? But the point is, if you can create a relationship where you're caring for someone else, where you're helping them, you know, live a better life, helping them be more comfortable, happy, whatever it is, that act of caring and helping someone else can inside you foster an enormous sense of meaning and purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. And I want to sort of, we've talked about this concept before in other sort of lessons, and it's, I think, relevant in this context as well. Friedrich Nietzsche said, I'm going to put the quote on the blog, but it's more or less, you know, if I know my why, the how is something that I can sort of bear, right?
Yes.
So Simon Sinek talks about this, but this is actually something that comes way back from Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher. And so, yeah, it's really important to think about, why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? Why? It's like the so what? Like, so what? Like, totally. Why am I doing this? Why do I care about this? So really asking yourself in earnest, and maybe you take some time, maybe it's not very... maybe the answer is not as apparent to you, right? Maybe sit down with a nice warm beverage.
Your favorite.
My favorite. Get out a piece of note paper or a notebook and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I, you know, care so much about X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
And find that answer, right? And if the answer is good, then that means it's coming from you. If it's not so good, it's probably like the noise from society.
Totally. Yeah. Right? And I think that's a really good point in the context of when you're having trouble with stuff.
Yeah.
If you're having trouble getting something done, the best way to sort of start problem solving is to get to the why first.
Yeah.
Why does this need to get done? Because if you don't have a strong sense of purpose in what you're doing, it's going to get a lot harder.
Yeah.
There's a book we're reading right now that's not released to the general public, but it's coming out soon by Derek Sivers.
Prolific writer.
Yeah. Prolific writer, very quiet person, but at the same time, very thoughtful, and really just a wonderful contributor to, I think, the human society. So in any event, he had this great little snippet where he's talking about when you talk to a runner, right? Or when you talk about going for a run, you have two types of people: the people who enjoy it and the people who don't. So when you talk to someone who doesn't enjoy going for a run, and you ask them, can you describe, what it's like to go on a run? They'll say, It's just the hardest thing. You have to, you know,
For
tie your
stretch.
shoes. You have to warm up your muscles.
You have to drink your water
You have
ahead
to
of
drink
time.
you have to get hydrated. You have to make sure the weather's nice. When you're out there, you're sweating. You're breathing hard. It feels like you can't breathe, right? It's just sort of, they list out all the reasons,
steps.
all the steps,
these
all the
like
labor involved, the
obstacles.
obstacles, and why it's just so darn hard.
Yeah.
And then you talk to someone who loves running. You say, so what's it like to run? And they're like, oh, it's easy. You
Just-
put on your shoes and go for a run.
Go out the
Just
door.
do it, right? And I think that's a very, very effective way to understand the power of purpose, right? Because for the runner who loves running, their why is the sort of the high of the run, and they have some intrinsic motivation,
maybe emptying their thoughts, their
right.
head. Yeah,
they have some intrinsic motivation, and so the how becomes
irrelevant. It's just not even something you think about. Right?
It just gets done because the why is so important to them.
So strong, and that sustains them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that same concept can apply to a lot of different things we do in our lives, right? If you can establish that why, all those intermediary steps, those perceived obstacles,
it doesn't even
kind of dissolve away.
Yeah.
Because the why is so important. Like you need to do it, and so you're just going to figure it out.
Yeah.
You're just going to figure it out. And I try to apply that philosophy anytime I feel like I'm really dragging my feet on something, procrastinating. I start by asking myself, okay, I don't want to do this, but I'm still trying to get myself to do this. Why am I trying to get myself to do this? And if I spend some time dwelling on the why, it's much easier than to motivate myself to actually get it done.
And the how is sort of like...
how just works itself out.
Yeah, it just happens.
Almost inevitably.
Exactly. So once you've found purpose, what is that? How do you know that sensation? What does it feel like to have found purpose or meaning? The way I like to think of it is like a time warp. Like you have no idea what time of day it is. You're cranking away at your computer or, on some other gadget, maybe, longhand writing or whatever, your easel, your art easel, right? You have no conception of time. The conception of time has somehow just evaporated.
Absolutely.
And like you sometimes forget to eat, you forget to drink water, you forget to like do these things that we need, like Maslow's hierarchy, right?
I'd call that flow state in my experience, right? When I feel a strong sense of purpose or meaning in what I'm doing, totally time disappears. I can go the whole day just on this one thing.
Absolutely.
And it's a wonderful experience. Your whole body is just honed and focused on this one thing that you're working on. And that's flow state for me, right?
And flow state is a term coined by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he talked about being...
I didn't know who coined it.
Yeah, he talked about being in this state of flow where you're literally flowing. Like there's no...
You're in your groove.
Yeah, you're in momentum, you're battling inertia. It's not even like your why is so strong that you're flowing in your why.
Yeah. And the reason why time disappears, and I mentioned earlier, one of the good things to do is focus on the present. That focus on the present is what happens in flow state, and that's why the sense of time disappears. Because essentially what's happening is you're so immersed in the present that our sense of time dissipates, right?
Yeah.
And there's an astrophysiological reason for that, right? Which is we experience time linearly, right? In our typical day-to-day.
Right.
But in order to do that, we have
past, present, future. It's like a timeline, linear.
You have to be aware of your past and aware of your future.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about your past or your future, then you're technically not really in the present, right? And so when you're not thinking about the past or the future, and you're only thinking about the present, time loses its sense of linearity, its chronology.
It becomes more like configurable.
It's just this circle.
Yeah.
And
cyclical.
Yeah, or almost a sphere. And so you're just in that moment. And it's hard to describe without being in it yourself. But if you have a strong enough sense of purpose in what you're doing, that's what happens. I think people experience it a lot when they're playing with their kids.
Yeah.
Right? They stop worrying about,
Yeah.
their to-dos. They stop
Yeah.
worrying about the weight of the world.
Yeah.
It's just the joy of being there with their kids.
Yeah, for me, that was growing up. That was dancing, like just being like listening.
That's a great example.
Listening to the music. So I grew up dancing ballet, and I was like really into it. And like I just remember just being like, yeah, there were so many steps involved, but just put my shoes on and go to class, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once you're in that moment, it's like the music and the choreography, you just get lost in it. It becomes this like ritualistic thing. It's just so incredible. I still love it so much to this day.
Yeah. Exercise in general is definitely, I mean, that's part of why people love jogging.
Yeah. Yeah, I think running is a really good example of that too, right?
Anything that gets your heart rate up.
So maybe, if you want to get into flow in other aspects of your life, a good way to sort of propel yourself into that is to find a sport or some like meditative activity that really gets you to that level of flow.
Yeah.
Even when we were playing tennis the other day, I was like, wow, I'm really focused on the present.
Yeah, something that has
amazing.
Like a very repetitive motion can do that. It's funny, you can do it in different ways.
Yeah.
Like for me, I can definitely get into flow coding.
Coding, yeah.
And coding is not repetitive, or it can be, but the coding I like is sort of problem solving. You just work on this problem. It is very iterative. But I find something more that's like you're building and creating. But so that's one way to achieve flow. But I think also repetitive stuff is probably even easier to get into flow state with.
Yeah, so like
something where you just like you get into emotion, you go over and over. And tennis is one of those where it's just pop, right? Particularly if you're just rallying, right? You just get into that flow. And once you're there, I have to imagine, I know they're doing experiments on this, and we'll learn more about it, but I have to imagine being in that state
a flow
where you're not worried about what else is going on in the world, where you're just there, one with the moment. Is a very cathartic experience. And it's probably something akin to sleep or meditation, or
getting in a trance.
I think getting in a trance, right? It's just there's a lot of great things happening in your brain when you enter that. So this is just another powerful reason to want to sort of find that sense of purpose and meaning, so that it's more easy for you to jump into that state of mind.
To transfer that to other aspects of your life as well.
Yeah. So we got pretty metaphysical
philosophical, metaphysical.
Yeah. But I don't know. We love talking about this type of thing.
It's interdisciplinary too. So.
Yeah. And we are running up on our time, but we'd love to hear from you guys in terms of what sort of gets you motivated. Where do you find purpose? What helps you find purpose? And if you feel like you've lost it, how do you go out and recover it, right? These are really tough questions, tough things to do that I think we can learn a lot from each other about, and everyone benefits. So,
So I just want to leave us with something that came up in my yoga practice today. And it was, I say practice like as if I do it every day, but I'm trying to. So far it's like twice this week. So that's pretty good.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not faking it. I'm owning up to it, but I'm just trying to make
it. Telling your mind.
Yeah,
that it's
I'm
like
trying
a
to
practice.
exactly. I'm trying to have it become part of my like identity or whatever. Okay. So the whole point today in today's practice was sometimes something needs to break in order for something better to come in and come into like light, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that saying, a window breaks so that a door opens. All that kind of like aligns. Right? Sometimes something needs to break, or we break it, or it breaks. Lightning hits it. I don't know. And then something better will grow out of that,
right.
And become. So think about that. Maybe sit on it for a little bit. I'm certainly gonna sit on that for a little bit today. And
right. When one door shuts, another opens.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Or like a window. I like the idea of a window because it's smaller, right? And then a door opens. Right? The window closes, and then the door opens. It's like kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, life has
magical.
this funny way of balancing out. So things that in the moment seem like a problem turn into an opportunity later. That happens all the time, and a lot of it has to do with mindset.
Yeah, so it's better if we try to think of it that way. In the moment, okay, there might be some like crying and do that, right? We need to do that too. But then, have faith that I think it'll something better is on its way.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We love doing this, and
we love all of you, everyone in the community.
So, anyways, have a great weekend.
Yeah.
And we will see you in our
Next time.
next session.
That's right. Happy explearning, everyone.